Hello YouTube, this is Said Mirza. Today I will be going over the word Rahman and how it's actually used in the Quran. But before I do that, I wanted to let you know that I finished my book called Will You Not Reason? It's a concordance of God's arguments in the Quran, and you can download it for free on the website willyouNotReason.com. In this book, I go over many verses in the Quran that are proofs for the existence of God and life after death, and provide various arguments that can be used against people who deny the message of the Quran. And I have also exhaustively researched the religion of Islam and its five pillars, and the absence of such pillars in the Quran, and the tenuous connection of the religion of Islam with the Quran. So I do hope that you take some time to read it over and pass it on to any of your friends who might be interested in the Quran alone. With that being said, let's look in two websites that I will be using to investigate the usage of the word Ar-Rahman. The first website is called studyquran.co.uk, and what we're going to be doing is clicking on the search by root link here and going to project root list. Now, this Project Root List is a great effort by the Quran Alone followers, and what they've done is that they have gone through lexicons and dictionaries to look for specific roots. And as you might be aware, Arabic words are based on three-letter roots that define a core idea of a word. And so these roots are really behind all the words in the Quran. So the word Rahman is from the root Raha Mim, and what that root means is we shall see an idea which can encompass the word Rahim, which is also derived from the same root, and Rahman, which is derived from Raha Mim. So let's go on to this root here, Ra, and I'm just gonna search for Rahamim. Okay, so here we have the root for the word Rahman and Rahim. And you can see here, Rahima is he favored, benefited, pardoned. Tarhamu is he had mercy, pity, or compassion. Arham is womb, as in womb of the mother, place of origin. Ruhmun is the relationship derived from Arham, obviously. It could mean brother, sister, kin. And Rahman is the active participle noun in the measure of falan, which conveys the idea of fullness and extensiveness. So when we're looking in the Quran, we're going to be trying to see if this idea of fullness and extensiveness is what the word Rahman means. Because currently, a lot of translators, and I'm quoting Muhammad Asad here, he uses the words most gracious to define Rahman, which is entirely incorrect, because the most gracious or the most merciful is what the word Rahim means, and Rahman means something different than that. So we're going to investigate the Quran to see what this word actually means. And I'm just showing you the process so you can go through the Quran and do this for yourself for other words that you might not agree with the translation, or you want to understand the translation in a more in-depth manner. The website I'm using is called Quranics.org. It's a great website because what it does is that they've listed translations from many different translators, so you can get um, a more fuller idea or and nuances of any verse. So what we have here is we have the translation by Idip, Monotheist Group, Muhammad Asad, Rashad Khalifa, and Shabir Ahmad. Now, if you know anything about the Quran, you know that the word Rahman is used pretty much across the board because it's in the Bismillah Rahman Rahim, which starts at every chapter except one chapter. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to click on this word here, the Rahman, and when we click on it, what it does is that it pulls off all the instances of the root. Remember, the root is what the word is based upon. So the root here is Rahamin. And so it pulls up all the roots of that word in the Quran. We have about 339 uh, times that it shows up in the Quran. So we're gonna go through some of these occurrences to get an idea of what the word Rahman means. I'm not gonna go through every instance, And I do encourage you to take some time out and actually look in these tools and figure out what the word means. Don't take my word for it. Don't take any mullah's word for it. Use your own intelligence and reason. And God willing, you will see that this word has been mistranslated by pretty much every translator except the monotheist group and Sam Gerrans. Okay, so we're gonna look for this root, this word in the Quran, and we have here in chapter 19, verse 18. She exclaimed, "Verily I seek refuge from thee with the most gracious, if thou art conscious of him." And this is Muhammad Asad's translation. Now let's look at the context of this verse to see what is going on. We're gonna right click on here and open it in a new tab, and this pulls up all the verses before and after this specific verse. So here we have narration about Maryam, um, and she's saying, uh, and God is saying, "And call to mind through this divine writ Mary, lo, she withdrew from her family to an eastern place, and kept herself in seclusion from them, whereupon we sent her unto her our angel of revelation, who appeared to her in the shape of a well-made human being." Now, this angel of revelation is also translated as the spirit, and what it's referring to is the angel Jibrail, and he came to her in the shape of a well-formed human being, a man. So she said, "I seek refuge with thee, from thee, with the Ar-Rahman, if thou art conscious of him." So right here we have a problem because she is seeking refuge from this thing in the Ar-Rahman. So you seek refuge in someone who is the all-powerful, the mighty. You don't seek refuge in someone who is the merciful. So we can see right off the bat that the word Rahman cannot mean the word most gracious. And I'm gonna build my case based on many different verses. We're just gonna go through them and come to a conclusion. And again, I advise you to go through the instances of all these words, and I've done this, and you can come to your own conclusion. Don't take my word for it. Okay, we have in chapter 19, verse 44, "O my father, do not worship Shaitan, for verily Shaitan is a rebel against the most gracious." Again, we have the same problem. Here, Prophet Ibrahim is warning his father. He is saying, "Do not worship Satan, for verily Satan is a rebel against the Rahman." And we see this, what this word means in the next verse where it says, "O my father, I dread lest a chastisement from the Rahman befall thee, and thou wilt become close unto Satan." So the chastisement, the punishment can only befall for someone who is the mighty, uh, the avenger, the punisher. It cannot uh, descend upon you from someone who is gracious or merciful. And I would advise you to check out my video called The 99 Names of God, in which I translated all the words, all the names of God into English, and you can see some words in there that would shock you because God is referred to as the Avenger. He is referred to as the Distresser. So that is one of his attributes. He is the Almighty and he punishes, and we should fear him. So again, the word Ar-Rahman seems to mean someone who is all powerful, who can punish, and it cannot mean the merciful or the gracious. Moving on, we have chapter 19, verse 87, where it says, "None will have intercession unless he has entered into a bond with the Rahman." Again, entering into a bond or a contract or a pact with someone who is the Almighty can help you. Otherwise, it won't. And this is what this is. This is a clear reading of the Quran. Chapter 19, verse 88, "As it is, some assert the Rahman has taken unto himself a son." Now, this does not make any sense if we translate it as the most merciful, because what the argument is that God is the Almighty, He is the All Powerful. He has no need for a son or daughter or partners. He is alone in His almightiness. That is what the argument is, and we lose that argument. We lose that the essence of the argument if this word is translated as the most gracious. And this continues down the line where it says in chapter 19, verse 92, although it is inconceivable that the Almighty, the Rahman, should take unto himself a son, because he has no need, no partners. And furthermore, we see this again being honestly, these are clear verses, and the Quran is a book that can be understood, and we need to make an effort instead of letting these mullahs dictate what the tenets of religion are and misleading people from the path. Chapter 19, verse 93 says specifically, not one of all that are in the heavens or on the earth appears before the Rahman other than as a servant. So the Rahman is the Almighty King, and everyone comes to him as a servant. It cannot mean the most merciful in this context at all. Chapter 20, verse 5, the Rahman established on the throne of his almightiness. Right here, it's impossible for this word to be merciful, because what we're talking about is the attribute of the Almighty, that he is established on the throne. He has all the power. He directs the matter. And chapter 20, verse 90, here we're talking about the children of Israel, who basically, after Musa left, they reverted to idol worship. And his brother Harun was warning them. He was saying, and indeed, even before had Harun said unto them, O my people, you are but being tempted to evil by this, for behold, your sustainer is the Rahman. Follow me then and obey my bidding. So he's warning them that your sustainer is the Almighty, and he is capable of punishing. So he was making them fear God. Moving on, chapter 20, verse 108. On that day all will follow the summoning voice, from which there will be no escape, and all sounds will be hushed before the Rahman, before the Almighty, and thou wilt hear nothing but a faint sough in the air. Basically what it's saying is that, on the judgment day, all sounds will be hushed before the Almighty, and there will be no escape, and you will not hear save a whisper. Everyone will be silent. And we've already touched upon this theme before, chapter 21, verse 26. And some say the Rahman has taken unto himself a son. Limitless is he in his glory, nay, honored servants. They are all honored servants, whoever comes to God, because God is the Almighty. Chapter 21, verse 42. Say, who could protect you by night or by day from the Rahman? And yet from a remembrance of their sustainer do they stubbornly turn away. So, who could protect us from the Almighty in night or day? Again, these are clear verses, and they explain to you what the word Ar-Rahman means. Chapter 21, verse 112. Say, O my sustainer, judge thou in truth, and our sustainer is the Almighty, the one whose aid is ever to be sought against all your attempts at defining him. A clear reading of this verse again comes to the conclusion that what we are told to say is that our Lord, our sustainer, judge between us in truth, and our sustainer is the Almighty, and his aid is to be sought against everyone who is lying about God and about defining him based on conjecture and vain desires. Chapter 25, verse 26. On that day true sovereignty belongs to the Rahman, to the Almighty, hence a day of distress will it be for all who deny the truth. And chapter 25, verse 59 is a beautiful verse, because again it opens up the meaning of the word Rahman and just gives you a glimpse of the power of the Almighty. It says, he who has created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them in 6 aeons, which mean periods. In the Arabic is yawm, which means days. Um, he who has created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them in 6 aeons, and is established on the throne of his almightiness. The most gracious is how he's translating it, when it should be the most almighty. He established on the throne of his almightiness, and he created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. Ask then about him, one who is aware. Chapter 36, verse 11: Thou canst warn only him who is willing to take the reminder to heart and who stands in awe of the Ar-Rahman, the Almighty, although he is beyond the reach of human perception. Unto such then, such give the glad tidings of forgiveness and of a most excellent reward. Chapter 36, verse 23: Should I take to worshipping deities besides him? If the Almighty should will that harm befall me, their intercession could not in the least avail me, nor could they save me. Chapter 36:52: They will say, and this is the disbelievers, the people who deny the day of judgment, they will say when they are raised on the day of judgment, "Oh, woe unto us, who has roused us from our sleep?" This is what the Almighty has promised, and his message bearers spoke the truth. The Almighty is one who can deliver on His promise and who has promised that men will be raised up. And unfortunately, the translators don't really render the verses correctly, because if you think about it, and we're just talking logically, the disbelievers deny the day of judgment, and the day of judgment is going to be a hard day for them because they will be rewarded with hell. So, why would they say this is what the most merciful has promised? This is a day of calamity for them. So it is fitting that they should say this is what the Almighty has promised, and that we are going to be held to account for what we did. 43, chapter 43, verse 20: Yet they say, had the Almighty so willed, we would never have worshipped them. They cannot have any knowledge of such a thing. They do nothing but guess. So here they're saying that if the Almighty had willed, as in He had complete power, we would have never worshipped our false idols. Again, the word most gracious does not make any sense. Okay, now I'm not gonna go through all these verses like I said in the beginning, but I do want to concentrate on one specific chapter. It's chapter 55 of the Quran, and we're gonna go on that chapter real quick. And the word Ar-Rahman will be clear to you what it means, because the chapter's title is Ar-Rahman. It says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most gracious, the dispenser of grace. I'm using Muhammad As's translation here, and he's translating it's the most gracious, Ar-Rahman. Okay? Alam al-Quran has imparted this Quran. Khalaq al-Insan, he has created man. Allamahul Bayan, he has imparted unto him articulate thought and speech. At his behest the sun and moon run their appointed courses. Ash-Shamsu wal-Qamru bihisban, wan-Najmu wash-Shajru yajdan, and before him prostrate themselves the stars and the trees. And just want to let you know that the word sujood does not mean prostration. You can check out another video in which I go into depth about what the word sujood actually means. Anyway, moving forward. And the sky has erased and has devised a measure. وَالسَّمَاءُ رَفَعَهُ وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ إِلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ, so that you do not, so that you too might never transgress the measure. So right here we are seeing the attributes of God, Ar-Rahman, that he taught the Quran, that he created man, that he taught him understanding, that created the heavens, the sun and the moon, and they are running in complete precision and harmony, and the star and the tree submit to him, and that he raised the sky, and he established the balance, that you do not transgress the balance. This is a clear reading of the Quran. I do encourage you again to go through all these instances of the Quran and see what it means yourself. Um, I'm coming from a Muslim background myself. I do understand that there's a stigma where Muslims are told that the Quran is difficult to grasp and that you need to know Arabic in detail and go to Al Azhar University or go to Saudi Arabia and learn from those guys over there. That's completely false. If you have the inclination, do learn Arabic, try to understand the Quran using the Quran alone. There are tools available now that allow you to gain an understanding and grasp the meaning of this great book. And it's a real travesty that Muslims nowadays are still listening to these guys on YouTube, these mullahs who come in and jump up and down and wear these fancy robes and clothes, and that we're supposed to take their word for them. We will be questioned on the day of judgment. And our eyes and ears and understanding will be questioned. So it is incumbent upon men to start reading the Quran and asking God for guidance and using the reason, the greatest gift bestowed by God upon man, and make a firm foothold on which to stand upon. This is really what my channel is about, and I do encourage you again to read the Quran sincerely and try to understand it and look in the context. Don't just take my word for it or anyone else's word for it. Do use a reason. But that's pretty much all for it now. Inshallah, I'll be making more videos like this about different key terms in the Quran and how they have been mistranslated by translators. And again, the hope is for you to research on your own and come to a conclusion based on firm understanding of the book. Inshallah, until the next video, Assalamu alaikum.